coming back to some of the comments that have been made around what is going to be the fastest and quickest way to democratizing this access. Again, the conversations are happening at multiple levels in different platforms, but my belief is that we haven't moved away from simply having these conversations and actually having action towards understanding that how much of this capacity can be made available for emerging economies and low middle income countries that really need this and want to be at the forefront of how we can adopt AI and with the much needed infrastructure that is required. And so what that leaves is a scenario or a situation where everyone is going to find a partner who is willing to provide that infrastructure. And so if you can find a partner that is going to enable you and give you what they say, one of the things that we've done has been to, one, go into the education system all the way from primary school to tertiary levels and ensuring that we have digital literacy programs that are coming through. And the reality is that when we start to think about digital literacy training, we cannot unlock that without also thinking about device access. Because at the end of the day, how do people get trained on digital literacy? They need the digital tools to actually be trained. And so that's why there's been an active effort to drive both device access, whether it's a smartphone for citizens that are trying to access government services online, or even laptops and tablets for students in schools, so that at least we are driving both the agenda of digital access together with digital literacy. Now, again, the gap is big. I remember we've had conversations where we're looking at, for Rwanda, a population of 14 million people. We have a student population of about 3 million students. If you look at that sheer number and how much money is required to make sure that every student has a device in their hands, it's quite a big number. And if we then look at this from Nigeria perspective or Ethiopia or Kenya, then the number is even much bigger. So what we've been discussing with organizations like UNICEF is almost using the vaccine model, where you aggregate demand, you're able to talk to the companies that are manufacturing these devices, and you can lower the cost and then create device financing models around an even lower cost for these devices so that we can be able to do that. I want to come to one last thing, which was funding that both Strive spoke about, which, again, some of the challenges that we see and we face in, let's say, even I'll take an example for Rwanda, you meet venture capitalists who will tell you, we don't see investable companies. Then you meet the companies who are saying, we don't see the funds. So there's always, almost that conflict. And so we've had to ask ourselves, even as a government, where do we play to support, this synergy? Do we create, an early stage financing facility that provides grants and supports these startups to take up? In reality, we probably will not even have sufficient funds as a government to sort of support, but at least we need to start somewhere and sort of like create catalytic financing that can bring in more, partners that sort of think about the different growth stages of a startup and the kind of financing that is required to get there. And so it's a big challenge when we think about scale, but again, I think this is where I come back to the, the concept of partnerships in understanding what role does government play. How do we provide that catalytic financing and bring in the philanthropists, the big businesses in the economy that can sort of support this kind of innovation happening within the economy? And in reality, there's no one size fits all on how this can be done, but I think for governments who always try to experiment with different models on how we can support startups.
Minister, thank you.